So presently I'm reading this book, Faulkner and Humour, edited by Doreen, Fowler and J. Abadie. It's an anthology of essays that explore various aspects of William Faulkner's rich and inexhaustible comic art. The essays all hold in common one axiom. Now, what's an axiom? A statement that everyone believes is true. In mathematics, the axiom is the established proof, sort of. So the axiom here is that William Faulkner, the recognized genius of tragic art, is a master of comic forms as well. And neither mode, that is tragic or comic, is ever very far from the other in Faulkner's world. His humor explores the entire range of human possibilities, from communal celebration to sharp-edged satire. In The Sound and Fury, to illustrate, the Jason section is a case in point to show the relationship between humor and humanity. Jason, who is clearly ruthless, greedy, and vicious, necessarily evolves our harsh judgment. At the same time, Jason, who beats his breast, tears his hair, and loudly bewails his fate in extravagantly exaggerated language, is also comical. While this humor cannot exonerate Jason or reverse our judgment, it does serve to remind us constantly that Jason, like us, is human. Now, William Faulkner, a Nobel Prize winning author known for his complex, tense novels, is often associated with themes of tragedy, decay, and the human condition. However, as Faulkner's humor reveals, Faulkner's work is also characterized by a unique and often overlooked sense of humor. Faulkner's humor is often described as dark, ironic, and absurdist. He frequently employs humor to subvert expectations, challenge societal norms, and highlights the contradictions and paradoxes of human experience. Through his humor, Faulkner critiques the social, cultural, and historical context of his fictional world, often using irony, satire, and ridicule to expose the hypocrisies and flaws of his characters. The essays in this book explores the various ways in which Faulkner uses humor in his work, from the absurdity of The Sound and the Fury to the dark humor of Sanctuary, that is his novel. By examining Faulkner's humor, the collection sheds new light on the author's unique narrative, pathos in his exploration of the human condition. Pathos is what? Pity or sadness. It evokes pity or sadness when you go through it. In the contents, you can see the different essays that are written. One that sort of caught my eye was the Faulkner Reads the Funny Papers by M. Thomas Ingay. He writes, of all the popular arts, the comic strip is considered the most inconsequential. Produced by a daily deadline, read quickly, and childish amusement, this uniquely American derived art from more than 100 million has been accorded little appreciation. American derived art form has been accorded little appreciation, even though at present more than 100 million people follow the daily adventures of their comic strips, etc. Well, in this essay, M. Thomas explores William Faulkner's fascination with comic strips and his influence on his writing. Inge argues that Faulkner's reading of comic strips, particularly those by George Herriman, that is Crazy Cat, and E.C. Seeger, that is Popeye, informed his use of humor, satire, and absurdity in his fiction. Inge examines how Faulkner incorporated elements of comic strip narrative such as fragmented storytelling, absurdity, and visual humor into his novels. He also discusses how Faulkner's use of comic strip techniques allowed him to critique societal norms, challenge reader expectations, and explore the complexities of human experience. By analyzing Faulkner's engagement with comic strips, Inge sheds new light on the author's unique blend of humor, satire, and literary innovation, and demonstrates how Faulkner's reading of the funny papers influenced his development as a reader. So his very famous song, "I am what I am, and that's all I am." The Popeye the Sailor's Man, right? Now, Seeger's Popeye is a character compound of vulgarity and compassion, raw aggression and protective gentleness, violent waterfront humor, and genuine sensibility, bellikely, thick-headed stubbornness and imaginative leadership, brutal enmity and warm friendship, who can knock out a horse in rage and nurse a baby carefully when it is suffering a fever that makes thermometers pop. He is no paranoid daydream, but a realist, complex, often wrong but determined man of action who suffers continual agonies of decision, who pursues what he believes to be right far beyond the bounds of cop-interpreted law and order, who has to fight his very way to comprehensibility through the rap and the woof of an English language that is often almost too much for him. Popeye, human, smelly, capable of disastrous mistakes, able to slug a woman, pursue likely-looking chicks with interest, swear a blue streak when irritated, able to be cheerfully cynical about almost everything dear to the proper, from patriotism to making money, and with a capacity to looking as sloppy as he behaved, was certainly more of an anti-superhero than anything else. Yet it was his jaunty character and behavior that wowed the public and made them turn to thimble theater first among the comics for a full decade. And these comments simply go to show that Popeye of the funny papers was a complex, multifaceted character with more of the bizarre and antisocial in his nature than most people today are likely to know about. It is in this context, therefore, that Faulkner's use of the name becomes most appropriate. His mean-spirited, pugnacious, violence-prone, independent and aggressive Popeye has none of his namesake's redeeming qualities, but all of his terrifying features turned to purely criminal purposes, etc. I mean, you just have to go through his. And the other major character in Faulkner's fiction besides Popeye, who bears a name famous in comic strip history, is Jiggs, the mechanic, who is a part of the Schumann expanded family in Palin. So, So, this examination of Faulkner's fiction for comic strip references suggests that he looked to the funnies as a source of names for some of his characters, but rather than appropriate them in any direct way, he used the context of their associations in indirect ways to reflect on the situation and natures of the figures to whom they applied. Faulkner read the funny papers, but perhaps a little more deeply and seriously than most people would suspect. But then, this was the man who wanted, when he first went to Hollywood in 1932, to write film scripts for Mickey Mouse cartoons. So, all of that. Well, that's the back cover. It is published by the University Press of Mississippi. And the ISBN for you to see. That is it. The essays indeed are interesting.